Chapter 5, public spending and not public choice. Okay, we're not going to do the public choice, obviously. Market failure. Remember that in the price system, the market almost always determines the right amount to produce. Not too much, not too little. Okay? If they produce too much, prices will come down, they'll produce less. If they produce too little, prices will rise and they'll produce more. If we want more of this good, we want more resources used, demand shifts out, we get more. Okay? Very nice system for not only allocating resources, but distributing goods and services to the population. Okay? But sometimes the market fails to determine the correct amount. A market failure is caused by the existence of externalities. Okay? A third party, not buyer, not seller, either gets a benefit because of the production of the good without paying for it, okay, or pays a cost even though they're not a supplier. Okay? When we have when externalities exist, the market either over-allocates resources, devotes too many resources, produces too much, or under-allocates resources, devotes too few resources, produces too little. Okay? When we have a negative externality, a third party, neither buyer nor seller, is paying a cost because of the production of this good. Typically, this is caused by pollution, right? People in the community that live near the steel mill have higher medical costs, higher cleaning costs, okay? They're not buying steel, they're not working at the steel mill, but because they live in the environment area, they are paying higher costs, like me, right? My taxes are higher because the roads need to be repaired in my town more often because of those big trucks. I have higher cleaning bills because I have to drive my car through there. And actually I have other expenses because when they blow rocks up, right, they knock things off my walls and they break. So I'm paying a cost because of the production of a good, even though I'm not buying that good and I'm not selling that good. So not all of the true costs of that production are being paid for by the manufacturer. Some of them are being paid by external third parties. Because not all of the true costs not all of the costs are being paid by the manufacturer, the supply curve doesn't reflect those costs. Supply curve is too far to the right because it doesn't include all of the costs. And when the supply curve is farther to the right, we produce more than we should. Okay? This is the quantity that'll get produced. If we were able to force the manufacturers to pay all of the true costs, then the supply curves would shift in, okay, and less would be produced. Okay? That's the optimal quantity. That's how much should be produced. If we do not correct the negative externality, then we produce too much. Okay? When you have a negative externality, uncorrected, we produce too much. We devote too many resources to the production of this good. Okay? There are two ways, again, to correct a negative externality. We can tax the suppliers to compensate the community, right? We can move my taxes down by increasing the taxes on the gravel producer so that they pay my costs indirectly, right? Yeah, I've got to have my car washed more, but my costs have gone down in terms of taxes. So I can now pay for that, okay? So if we can either tax the producers of externalities in order to compensate the community, or we can pass a regulation that eliminates the externality, okay? The steel mill, you can't pollute anymore. You have to install, air scrubbing equipment. That gravel pit, trucks could be limited to a certain size so they don't wreck the road. We can force the producer to clean the roads on a regular basis so that my car doesn't get dirty, right? Okay? So either by regulation to eliminate it altogether or by taxation. Okay? Increased taxes, supply curve shifts in, less gets produced. Okay? What was the definition? A market failure is a situation in which an unrestrained market results in too few or too many resources going to an economic activity. Is that right? Pretty close? Okay. Market failure, externality, monopoly, right? That's a board game. Right? Monopoly, a single company has control over the market. It is the only producer, or it owns all producers. By the way, we have what are called antitrust laws, anti-competition laws. I mean, anti-competition laws. You know how a corporation is run? A corporation has a president, right? And the president has a bunch of vice presidents, VPs, underneath it typically, okay? This person has a boss too. It's called the board of directors, okay? The board of directors are elected by the stockholders, the owners of the company. And their job is to hire and fire the president, maybe other senior managers, make the really big decisions, okay? We're going to merge with another company or acquire a multi-billion-dollar company, whatever, okay? So the board of directors hires and fires the president. If this is a steel company, and we have another steel company over here, and we have directors A, B, and C here, and we happen to have B and C on this company, and this company we have A and B, and this company we have B and C and A. They're all on the boards of these. This is totally illegal, okay? This is one of the other things that the laws prevent. That even though there are 3 or 4 different companies, it's the same people who are running them, not allowed also, okay? So those type of things, they're called interlocking directorates, and they're not allowed, okay? All right, no monopolies. Transfer payments and transfers in kind, we talked about that, right? Transfer payment is somebody gives you money for nothing, and it can be public or private. I can transfer money to my daughter, although it's most likely going to be the other way around from now on. I'm hoping. Anyway, a transfer payment we don't include in GDP, right? Welfare, unemployment, Social Security are transfer payments, and it's called a transfer payment because nothing is expected in return. You don't have to do anything to collect your Social Security, okay? Transfer in kind is same thing, except it's not money, it's goods or services. Like, let's say that the city of Cambridge decides to open up a free medical clinic, or provides free services to people who are indigent, who are homeless, okay? That would be a transfer in kind. You get medical services rather than, or you get food or something like that. Correcting for externalities. We just did the negative one. Now the positive one. Okay. When you have a positive externality, people who are getting the benefit of the good may not be buying it. Okay. If you all get the vaccination, I don't have to buy it because I'm protected. If you can't get it, I can't get it. Okay. If you all go get a college degree, I don't have to because you'll all take me along in our economic growth path. Okay. Whatever. All right. Okay. When third parties get the benefit without paying for it, they're not part of the demand curve. They're not included in it. Okay. As a result, the demand curve is too far to the left. Okay. Remember, when you have a negative externality, the supply curve is too far to the right. When you have a positive externality, the demand curve is too far to the left. Okay. Not everybody who's getting the benefit is in the population of people to buy. So as a result, we produce too little. Okay. How can we correct this? Again, negative taxation, in this case, negative tax. Okay. Government pays part of the cost of producing the good, costs fall, profits increase, supply curve shifts out, we produce more. Or we pass a regulation. You have to buy. If you're getting a benefit, you have to pay. Okay. Force people into the demand curve, increase in population, demand curve shifts out, and more gets produced. Okay? When there's a negative externality, uncorrected externalities, negative externality, we produce too much. Positive externality, we produce too little. Okay? Other economic functions of government. Okay. Well, we just talked briefly about one. We want an economic system that has the maximum amount of competition. Competition is good for us, right? The more companies competing for our business, the more choices we're going to have, the lower prices are going to be, and the higher quality we're going to get, okay? So we want maximum possible competition. We also want to make sure we don't get monopolies that can dictate to us what we have to pay for a particular good. So one of the role of government is to have a legal system that prevents the creation of monopolies. What's the last time we went after a monopoly? Do you remember? Who did the government go after? You know? Microsoft. Yeah, Microsoft. How successful was that? Not very at all. Is Microsoft a monopoly? Don't think so? I think pretty close to it, right? What is it, something like 85% of all operating systems are Windows, right? Windows-based? Yeah, I think so. So Microsoft, too big to break up.
Apple caught up.
Huh?
Apple caught up and had nothing to do with the government.
Yeah, Apple caught up and it had nothing to do with the government? Yeah, really. Well, didn't Microsoft, weren't they forced to invest in Apple so that they had a competitor of sorts? Something like that. Anyway. So we want a legal system. Actually, we want a legal system, and the government has to put that in place and enforce it, right? We want a legal system that does two things: ensures maximum possible competition in the marketplace and protects our private property rights, right? We have to be secure in our private property rights. If we are not secure in our private property rights, we don't risk our time, our money, our efforts to create new ideas, new products, all right? So in order to ensure that entrepreneurs get the benefits of their ideas, we have to be able to protect their private property rights. If we protect private property rights, we get more entrepreneurial activity, we get more better, greater ideas, better ways of doing things, we get economic growth, okay? So we want to have a legal system that ensures that our property rights are protected. What else does the government do in an economic sense? Anything else? Or is that it? I can't remember. A legal system, competition, public goods, providing public goods, okay? Now, remember the difference between a public and a private good? Public goods are not subject to the principle of rival consumption, meaning that a private good, if you buy it, there is less left for everybody else, okay? One less left for everybody else. But a public good like that lighthouse, just because I'm going by it and using some light, is there less light available for anybody else? No, okay? So it is not subject to the principle of rival consumption. Private goods are subject to what's called mutual exclusivity, meaning if I have it, you can't have it, okay? All right? The most important feature about a private good is that you can produce it and make a profit on it. Public goods, you cannot, okay? The reason being is that public goods are subject to free riders, individuals who can get the benefit of the good without having to pay for it, okay? So what does that mean? We have a positive externality when it comes to public goods. We'll only produce that amount unless government steps in, okay? All right? Because companies can't make a profit on them. They can't force me to pay for the lighthouse just because my ship is going by, okay? Public goods typically also have lots of positive externalities, lots of benefits to citizens. So government wants to increase them. We want more parks. We want better roads. Roads are kind of a quasi-public, okay? You can make people pay to use them, all right? But for the most part, public goods are those types of goods that provide benefits to the society, but will not be produced by private companies because they can't make a profit on them. So they have to be produced by government, or we don't get them, okay? Or we don't get them. So, public goods can be used by more and more people at no additional opportunity cost and without depriving others of any of the services of the good. Meaning once we've built that lighthouse, it can be used by more and more and more people without any additional cost. It doesn't matter whether one boat is going by or 1,000 boats going by. It's not going to cost any more, okay? All right? And one person's use doesn't deprive anybody else. Okay, not like a private good. When I'm driving my car, you can't. When I buy a car, you can't buy that car because it's mine now, okay? All right? And most importantly, it's difficult to design a collection system based on how much people value that good, okay? You cannot collect money. People can get it without paying for it. So they have to be produced by government. Okay. Now we have a question at the back of this chapter about a public good or a possible public good. This is 5-10, right? The French government recently allocated the equivalent of more than $120 million in public funds to Quero, Latin for I search, an internet search engine like Google or Yahoo. Does an internet search engine satisfy the key characteristics of a public good? Okay. Does it? No. Which one does it fail on? Remember, there's two, right? It can be used by more than one person, and it's difficult to design a collection system for it. Which one does it fail on? Both?
No.
I think only the second one, yeah.
No, because I believe that if the traffic becomes here,
It'll slow down and people won't be able to crash. Yeah, I suppose you could make that argument too. Yeah, I suppose you could. In fact, my online students, I accept either answer from them because it's true. Yeah, could you charge people to use it?
No, that's
You can
internet
restrict it.
service. You don't pay for Yahoo.
No, you don't. But you could charge for Quero, right?
Yeah.
You could charge. Remember,
So,
it's not that you don't, it's that you can't. Okay? That you can't charge.
so that means the answer could be yes or no.
Yeah, it could be yes or no. Okay, I'll go with that. Yeah, it depends on how it's set up, and yeah, exactly right. So, there used to be one where a community builds a tennis court for the public. Okay, is that a public good? A tennis court? Does that fit the characteristics of a public good? Yeah, exactly. Only two people can use it. Right? If you're using it, I can't. Okay. Can you design a collection system based on how much people value that tennis court? Hell yeah, sure. You put somebody there that says, "Oh, you can't play unless you pay." Right? So, all right. All right. Any other questions on? Was anything else on this one? Oh, the political functions of government. We didn't finish that. Okay. Oh, I didn't quite finish the public ones. I mean, the economic ones. Public goods, ensuring economy-wide stability. Right. We want them to keep inflation under control, and we want to keep employment high. We know that the economy goes through fluctuations, and we want to keep these troughs to a minimum, keep recessions from becoming depressions, right? And we don't want inflation to get out of control. And in general, we want actions that will, over the course of time, grow the economy. Okay? So, government is essentially responsible for managing the economy. By the way, this is a 20th century phenomenon, okay? Prior to the 20th century, at least here in this country, government had pretty little responsibility in terms of managing the economy. It was pretty much laissez-faire. So we went through all kinds of booms and busts where the economy would go out of control and then come crashing down, okay? And this happened over and over again. And it wasn't until the creation of the Federal Reserve Bank of the United States that we began to be able to bring some order into that cycle of happening, okay? And now, for that reason, almost every single country in the world has a central bank to manage its economy for it, okay? But in the past, it was pretty much see what happens, okay? So that's a fairly recent phenomenon that we have charged the authorities with managing the economy for us. Okay? Political functions of government, remember, political functions are based on normative economics. We make a value judgment. Things should or should not be, ought or ought not be. It's too little, too much, whatever. Okay? And when we make these value judgments, the people that make our laws tend to act on them on our behalf. And we end up with things like government-sponsored and government-inhibited or prohibited goods, right? Government-sponsored goods are almost all public goods. Parks, radio stations, public radio, good roads, police, right? And the like. Not a good, I don't know. Government-inhibited goods, right? These are goods that we as a society have made a value judgment. Nobody should be able to get this. Nobody should be allowed to sell it. Nobody should be allowed to use it, right? And these goods will be either made outright illegal, as in the case of cocaine. You can neither buy nor sell, or access will be restricted to certain groups, adults only. Only you can buy cigarettes and alcohol, and they will be, in many cases, taxed heavily in order to reduce the quantity demanded, which is the case of cigarettes and alcohol. There are huge amounts of tax on these goods, supposedly to reduce consumption. I think the Russians tried to do that, didn't they? Try to reduce consumption of vodka by taxing the hell out of it. What did that do? That just made everybody poor drunks. Income redistribution. Transfer payments again. You don't work, you can still get some money, maybe. It depends, right? Income redistribution, transfer payments, Social Security, unemployment, and welfare, okay? And transfers in kind that we already talked about, okay? And in fact, what they do, and generally speaking, is that they tax people who are working and give money to people who are not working, okay? That's income redistribution. That is socialism in action. Okay? It is. And the rest of this chapter we said we're not interested in, right? No. How about you guys? You guys interested in Social Security? It's a ways off. Yeah, maybe not. Probably might not be there when you get there. That's right. Fortunately, it's there when I'm there. Okay. Yeah, and the longer you stay, right? The longer you stay without collecting, the more and more you get, right? My dad didn't retire until he was 80. Yeah, and I think he got like $3,500 a month. That's nice. Yeah, yeah, that's pretty good.
Well, when was the year?
Oh, geez, let's see. That would be about 12 years ago now. Yeah. Imagine he worked till he was 80. Not me. What did he do? He sold real estate. He was he was a real estate. He worked in these expensive condominium complexes down on Cape Cod. In fact, my dad was so good at what he did. You know, if you sell $1 million worth of property in a year, you get a certificate, right? My dad had more $1 million, $2 million, and $3 million certificates in the second to or third to last year. No, in his life. He had more of those certificates than any other person in the United States, with one exception. One guy out in California, supposedly. So, yeah, he was really good at what he did because people loved him. He was just the type of guy that when you met, you liked him instantly and you trusted him. You know, you knew unlike, you know, who are the lowest people on the planet? Car salesmen. Just above them, real estate salesmen. Right? You can't trust any of them. But him, you could trust. Yeah, I miss him. He could have been a doctor, though. He went to Tufts University, right? You're familiar with Tufts? He graduated from Tufts. He was president of his class all 4 years, right? Freshman through senior, he was elected president of his class, a sports hero. And then he graduated, and he met my mother, who had a baby, had a young child, because it was World War II. Her husband was killed in the war, and he met them. He married her, and he went to work painting houses for my grandfather. He could have been a doctor. You could have been a doctor. But instead, he became a house painter and wallpaperer. And then his rich high school buddies came and hired him to sell houses and property. And that changed everything for him, and for us too, that's for sure. But he could have been a doctor. I'd be a doctor now probably, though, right? Just let you follow in the footsteps of your, right? My son's a teacher. A fool. Actually, this is the best damn job on the planet, frankly, as far as I'm concerned. Do you think I took this job? I was working for a major corporation, right? I was a corporate dink, making really good money, Okay, I'd be making probably 150 grand a year now if I was stayed with the corporations, at least that. Okay, you think I took this job for the money? Hell no. It's more flexible, but I did it because this is way more rewarding to me than being a corporate paper pusher. In fact, I told my boss second to the last year that I was working for him, I said, I'm not getting anything out of this anymore. I'm not getting any satisfaction from this job anymore. It doesn't interest me anymore. He always gave me a 1 on all my reviews. This year he gave me a 2. I was like, you dope, you shouldn't have told him that. Right? And that's why I left. This is way more fun. Right? All right. Government has to pay for all of the things that it does, right? And to do so, what do? They take our money. Okay? Definitions of capital gain. Remember, there's capital gains tax. Okay? Yeah. We pay a tax on the difference between what we paid for an asset and what we sell it for. And it doesn't matter, relative prices are not taken into account, okay? Government only cares about absolute price. So if you bought a share of IBM stock in 1960 whatever, okay, and it was 20 bucks, maybe that was the average price of stocks then. All prices tend to go up over time. You sell IBM today for $200 a share, that's average price. In a real sense, you haven't made any real money. Inflation has eaten up all of the difference. Okay? Government doesn't care. They just know that you made $180 absolute profit between the price you paid and what you sell it for. You got to pay a tax on that. Okay?
So don't use the stock. Just when you die, give that to your grandchildren.
Yes, that's right. Give your stock to your grandchildren. Exactly right. Boy, I wish I'd bought IBM stock in the 1960s. Huh? Wow. Do you know what the most expensive stock is today? Yeah, how much? You know how much it is, Michael?
$197,000.
Yeah, almost $200,000 for a single share of stock in the company. Yeah. Most stock is priced very, very low because they want to have a lot of people buying and selling, right? But Berkshire Hathaway, and you know who's the head of Berkshire Hathaway? Yeah, Warren Buffett, the second richest guy in the United States, right? 40 shares a day. I mean, that might sound a lot. I mean, that's a lot of money in one day, though, but it's nothing. I mean, my company, 16 million shares would change hands in one day, right? Big. At any rate, marginal and average tax rates. Okay, let's talk about our tax system. Okay, we can have one of three different systems: progressive, regressive, or proportional. Okay? Progressive, the more you earn or the higher the dollar value, the greater percentage it goes to tax. Regressive, just the opposite. The higher the dollar value, the lesser amount goes to the government. Okay? What happened? Okay. All right. So in terms of our federal income tax, which is the main source of government funds for the federal government, right? The state government, as we talked about, may or may not have an income tax. New Hampshire doesn't. We do. Florida doesn't. Okay? States tend to get their tax money from income taxes, state income taxes, and sales taxes and property taxes, right? The towns get their money from property taxes primarily, and excise taxes on your automobile. Okay? So we're talking about the federal government. The number one source is income tax from people who work. Okay? And the government divides our income into brackets. Okay? That's a bracket. A chunk of money. Let's say in this case it's $10,000. So we'll say from 0 to 10,000, that's one $10,000 chunk. From 10 to 20,000, that's a $10,000 chunk. And then from 20 to 30,000, we have another $10,000 chunk. And each chunk has its own tax rate. Okay? This is the marginal tax rate. The marginal tax rate is the rate that applies to the last dollar you earned. Okay? The the last amount of money. If you made $9,995, your marginal rate would be 0. If you made $10,580, that last dollar, that 80th dollar, would be taxed at 5%. If you made $27,233, that last dollar would be taxed at 10%, okay? So it's the tax rate that applies to the dollar in the highest bracket you are in, you have income in, okay? That's the marginal rate is the tax rate on the last dollar that you earned. Okay? Now, when you have a progressive system, the higher your income, the bigger percentage of your income you have to pay in taxes. As you can see, if you earn less than $10,000, you don't have to pay any tax, 0%. Then, as your income rises, you have to. Is that one? Nope. That's the one. Okay. All right. Then as your income rises, you begin to now pay taxes. Okay. So in a progressive system, the average tax, that portion of your average tax, that portion of your income that you pay, okay, increases. Okay. To determine average tax, total tax divided by total income. And then to get a rate, we have to multiply by 100. Okay. So what happens is your average tax goes up, your rate increases, the higher you go up into the tax brackets. Okay. So if you only earn $10,000, right, you pay none in tax, your rate is 0%, you paid nothing. No dollars. If you earn $20,000, you pay nothing on the first 10, but you have to pay 5% of that second 10. So you would pay $500. Okay? 5% of that second 10 is 500. Now what's our rate? 500 divided by 20,000 gives us a rate of 2.5%. And then if you have $30,000 in income, you pay nothing on the first 10. You pay $500 on the second 10, and then on this third 10, you get taxed at 10%. So you have to pay $1,000. So now your total tax is $1,500. You have to pay 0, 500, 1,000. So you have $1,500. Your total income is now $30,000, and that is equal to 5% of your income. Okay? So as your income rises, that percentage of your income you have to pay in taxes, your average tax increases from 0 to 2.5 to 5%. Okay? Progressive system. Regressive, just the opposite. Yeah. Oops. Oops. No. Okay. This would be a regressive system. Okay. As your income rises, your average tax goes down. Okay. You'd be paying 10% here, right? Okay. If you earn $10,000, you'd have to pay 10% of it, 1,000, which gives you a 10% rate. And then you only have to pay 5% of that one. That drops you down to 5%, right? Now, let's see. 500, 1,500, that would be 7.5%, right? Whatever, okay? And then this brings us down to what, 5 or 2.5%, whatever. All right? So what happens is when you have a little pie, they only take a little slice. When you have a big pie, they take a much bigger piece, okay? Anybody doing VITA, income tax? Yeah? What's the highest tax bracket now? Do you know? 30-something percent? 35? 35, 38, something like that. Okay. All right. We have one regressive tax. That's the Social Security tax, right? It only has 2 tax brackets. From 0 to, I don't know, $80,000, you pay 8% of that. And then from 80,000, and these numbers aren't right, to infinity, after that you pay 0. Okay. So if you earn $80,000, you pay $6,400 in tax. If you earn $800,000, how much do you pay in tax? $6,400. You still have to pay on the first 80, but after that, nothing, okay? If you earn, so what percentage? If you earn $80,000, you're paying 8%. If you earn $800,000, 0.8%. If you earn $8 million, 0.08%, okay? All right, your tax rate falls the more money you earn, okay? Higher income workers still have to pay the tax, but they pay it on a smaller portion of their income. Only the first 80,000. Only. Only the first 80 grand. And then we have a proportional, okay? From 0 to 10, 5.25. From 10 to 20, 5.25. From 20 to 30, 5.25, okay? So in essence, when you have a proportional, you only have one bracket. It's the same for all levels, right? Sales tax, okay? Sales tax. Marginal tax. How do you figure a marginal tax? Marginal tax rate is equal to the change in tax divided by the change in income and then multiplied by 100. So last year I made $40,000 and I paid $5,000 in tax, okay? This year I made $50,000. I paid $7,000 in taxes. So what's my marginal rate? Change in tax, $2,000. Divided by change in income, $10,000. 20% marginal rate. Okay? All right with that one? Okay. What else do we have for most important? Federal income tax, capital gains, we talked about that. The corporate income tax, and again, what's the trouble with the corporate income? Well, it depends on your viewpoint. My viewpoint, the trouble is if you are one of many owners of the corporation, your profits get taxed twice. If you're a single owner of a company, you only pay once. Okay? Corporations, when they make a profit, have to pay corporate income tax on that, and then after-tax profits are divided amongst the shareholders, the stockholders, in the form of what are called dividends. They have to conclude those as part of their own personal income and pay taxes on it again. Okay? So corporate profits are taxed twice. Anything else we care about? Social Security, unemployment taxes? Nah, I don't care about that. Okay? All right. That's it for that chapter. What do we have for... most important federal tax? Federal income tax. Okay? And then, what was the other one? Yeah, personal income tax. What was it? Corporate income tax and capital gains. What? Yeah. Okay. All right. What problems do we have? 6.2. For the purpose of assessing income taxes, there are three official income in a small country: high, medium, and low. For the last hour on the job in a 40-hour week, a high-income worker pays a marginal income tax rate of 15. Okay, and a low-income worker is assessed a 25% marginal income tax rate. Is this tax system progressive, proportional, or regressive? Regressive, yes. As your income rises, right? This person paid 25%, this one 20, and the other one 15, right? So it would be a regressive system. Tax rates, marginal tax rates go down as income rises. Okay? What else? 6.4. Problem 6.3. Okay, Cristino. Does he pay, what's his marginal tax rate? Well, when income goes from 1,000 to 2,000, his tax goes from 2 to 300, so he's at a 10% rate, right? A marginal rate? No? Why not? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong one. Does Cristino experience progressive, proportional, or regressive taxation? Now, why do you base that on? Well, let's see. What it says is he's paying a 20% rate. If he only makes 1,000, he pays 20%, right? Oops, what's happening there? Oh, is that what it was? Okay. Right, so 200 out of 1,000, that's 20%. And then he pays 300 out of 2,000. What's that, 15%?
Yes.
Is that right? Okay. And then in the next one it goes even lower, so obviously it is a regressive system. Okay? Jarius. Is Jarius's progressive proportional? 20, 20, and 20. Yep. Very good. And then what do you think Meg's going to be? Right, progressive. She pays 20% and then 25% and then more. Okay, 38 point something percent, is that right? 26. Okay. All right with that one? Let's see, what was the other one? Any more in there? No. Okay. Labor force. Who's in the labor force? Exactly. That's right. That's correct. Okay. Technically, you were correct when you said unemployed or employed, because to be in the labor force at all, to be considered either employed or unemployed, you have to be at least 16 years old. Okay. The labor force consists of all those people who have jobs, plus those that don't. That entire pool of people who are willing and able and want to work, whether or not they have jobs. Okay? Who's not in the labor force? Under 16. People who have retired. Stay-at-home mothers. People who win the lottery, right? And don't want to work anymore. Okay? Military also, absolutely. They are not free to take a job. People who are institutionalized, hospitalized mentally or physically, right? Not in the labor force. Okay.
Why military is not included?
Can you take a job? If I offered you Lieutenant Julio, I'd like you to come and work for me instead of the Army. Are you going to be able to leave the Army?
So they're providing a service and they're getting paid for it.
Yeah, they're getting paid for it, but they're not part of the labor force. They're not available for work in that sense. In fact, Army people, they really don't do much work. They don't. Right? But what do they say? If it's in a war, it's long periods of intense boredom punctuated with short periods of terror. Okay? All right. Now, how do we figure out the unemployment rate? It's that percentage of the labor force that doesn't have a job but wants one. Okay? So, the unemployment rate is the unemployed divided by the labor force, and then times 100 to get a rate. Okay, to get a rate. Okay, a discouraged worker. Well, where is the discouraged worker? Employed, unemployed? No. Neither one. Not in the labor force at all. Okay, you're not looking for a job. You're not unemployed. As far as the government is concerned, in order to be unemployed, you have to be 16 years of age of older or older and actively looking for a job. When you quit looking for a job, you will drop out of the labor force itself. Okay? Which is why during long, deep recessions, government unemployment numbers are really not high enough. Okay? Because they no longer include people who have given up looking for a job. Those people are still, as far as they're concerned, unemployed, but not as far as the government's concerned. So government might say its unemployment rate is 8.6%, when in fact it's 9.1% if you included all those discouraged workers. What's the unemployment rate in the United States now? Do you know? It's a little bit less than 8. It's about 7.6%, I think, right? 7.6. What is it in Europe? Do you know what it is in Europe today?
It depends. In Spain, it's very high.
It's very high. On average, I think in Europe it's around 12%. So they're not doing that well, employment-wise. Yeah, they're not doing as well as we are. Okay, let's see. The natural rate of unemployment. Okay, there are two kinds of unemployment we just cannot get rid of. First is frictional. You can't prevent people from quitting their jobs that they hate to look for another job. And you can't prevent managers from firing workers until they find another job. Okay, so we're always going to have frictional unemployment. Some portion of the labor force is always going to be looking for a new job. Okay. We also can't eliminate structural changes in the nature of the economy will occur. We'll stop making some things that we used to make. They're obsolete now. Those people that used to make those can't find jobs anymore. Okay. Or that job, we import those goods now. We don't make them here anymore. Or that's been automated now. So the structural unemployment we can't get rid of. If we have no cyclical unemployment, then we are considered to be at full employment, okay, out on the curve. If we have cyclical unemployment, remember due to recessions, then we'll be inside, okay? The natural rate. So the natural rate is the sum of frictional and structural, okay? Unemployment. So if that's all we have, we are considered to be at full employment, okay? It's only when we get cyclical unemployment, recessionary unemployment, that we now move inside the PPC, okay? And what is the natural rate of unemployment? Don't really know. They used to think it was like 5 or 6%. But I think they've adjusted that downwards, that it's really lower than that. Not sure, I don't remember. Doesn't remember. A recession, we all know what that is, right? That's a slowdown in economic activity, a contraction of the economy. And if it gets really deep and really long, we get what's called a depression. Okay? We came not too far off this last time from going into a depression. I think they should hang a few bank owners, bank managers, hang a few bank presidents. Evil. All right, unemployment. Now, what do we have here? Categories of individuals who are unemployed. Job losers, right? You got fired. Your company wasn't doing well, laid you off, right? Like my old company, I told you. Started with 120,000, ended up with 45,000. It wasn't because the economy was in a recession. It was because we didn't have products people wanted to buy anymore, right? So we had to lay off people. Okay. Job leavers, people who quit their job to look for another job, relocate, right? I did that once, I told you. Packed the family up, moved to Florida. Re-entrants, you won the lottery, you went to Foxwoods too many times. Now you need a job. Or you're retired and you got bored, right? I don't understand that. But at any rate, you decided you'd rather be working for some reason. So you go look for another job. Or for most college students, they are new entrants, right? Looking for your first job. Okay. You know, the first job that I ever interviewed for is probably the job that I would have loved the most. But because I didn't have a clue about what I was doing, I didn't get the job, right? I had a nice suit on, and I was talking to the boss and his number one guy, right? And the boss says, listen, I got to go do a few things. Why don't you stay here and talk to such and such? And I said, sure, that's okay. So he left, and such is there, and such leans back like this. So I'm like, Yeah, I'll do that too. I'll lean back there too. See? Put my hands in my pockets. Act natural. Right. They didn't offer me a job. I'd never been on an interview before in my life. Nobody had ever taught me anything about it, right? So I completely blew it. Well. Let's see. What else do we care about in here? Anything? We don't care. I don't care about labor force participation rate, although that's one of the questions, is it not? Okay. Major types, frictional. Talked about that, right? Frictions in the workplace. My boss is a jerk, so I told him I quit. Okay. I hate this job, so I left and looked for another one. I came in work too late, one time too many. He fired me. Okay. Frictional. Structural, again, frictional, you can get your job back. You have skills that you can sell, okay? Cyclical, when the economy goes downhill, you lose your job, but when it picks up again, you have skills you can sell. You can get another job, okay? Seasonal, right time of year comes around, you can still sell your skills. Structural, sorry, no skills to sell, okay? When you are structurally unemployed, nobody wants to hire you to do that type of work in that location anymore. We don't make that here anymore. Okay? We don't need people who know how to make that. That product is obsolete, or it's made in Japan now, or China more likely, okay? Or you've been replaced by a machine. Machine does that work now, okay? You are structurally unemployed. You can't find work doing that anymore. You need a new set of skills, and you may have to relocate, okay? So that's structural. And seasonal, that's obvious, right? You're a professional lifeguard. See that show, Babe Watch? Baywatch, right? I call it Babe Watch. Well, that's what it basically was. Women running around in skimpy bathing suits, right? With, what's his face? Hasselbeck? David Hasselhoff, huh? That show's long gone, long gone, right? Reruns, Baywatch, I don't know. At any rate, you're a farm worker. Right? Okay. All right, that's it for that. Any questions on unemployment? Inflation and deflation. Inflation, prices on average throughout the entire economy going up. Deflation, prices on average going down. Okay? Doesn't mean everything is going down, everything is going up, but on average, almost everything is going up or down. Okay? I think I told you I've never seen deflation. Okay? I'm not sure it exists. It's a theory. I think in the book here they mentioned last time, they had deflation in the 1870s or something like that. I think that's the last time. Okay, we don't want deflation. Anticipated versus unanticipated inflation. We need to talk about measuring the rate of inflation, right? Computing a price index. How do we compute a price index? Price index is equal to price of basket of goods today divided by price of basket in the base period, okay? Now let me ask you something. Here's 4 years. Okay? This is the price index for these 4 years. Which year is the base period? U2, exactly right. Okay? You can always tell the base period because the index for that period is always 100. Okay? Remember, think of these things as percentages. Base year prices are always 100% of base year prices, right? Okay. Then if we add 10% increase in inflation, then this year's prices are 100 plus 10% more. or 110%, okay? And to make our index, we just drop off the percentage, okay? Here's another question for you. Oops. Actually, we might have a problem like this, so I'll put this off. I think we have a problem like that, so we'll see, okay? So our index is, you take the price of a basket of goods today. Let's say it's $1,800, okay? And in the base period, that price, let's say that same basket of goods would have cost you $1,500. Okay? And then you have to multiply by 100. So we get, how many times is 1,500? 1.2 times 100 equals 120. So our index for the base year, 100. For this year, 120, right? Okay. Prices have gone up by 20% between the base period and now. All right? We have 3 price indexes, indices. Okay. Should be indices, right? Latin. The plural of index is not indexes, it's indices. It used to be anyway. It's probably not going to be much longer. The plural of index is going to be indexes. 3 of them that I care about. The 4th one, the PCE index, don't care about that. Okay. The consumer price index, the CPI, narrow measurement, only looks at what people in the city are paying for a select, narrow amount of goods. It doesn't look at all different goods. It only looks at a few goods that people who live and work in the city are buying, okay? It is called the cost of living index because it does, in fact, measure for most people in the country the cost of goods and services, okay? But it is narrow. It's confined to the city, and it doesn't cover everything. The producer price index, okay, measures what manufacturers are paying. What does it say exactly? Intermediate goods, finished goods. Most of the product prices included are in mining, manufacturing, and agriculture. It's considered a general purpose index for non-retail markets. Okay? The whole useful thing about the producer price index is that it's an early warning of inflation to come for us. If prices are going up for manufacturers in the mining industry, all those prices are going up, we're going to see higher prices in the future for the goods that are made with that more expensive resource or inputs now, okay? So the producer price index, a narrow measurement, it only looks at what manufacturers are paying and charging, but it's useful in that it's an early warning of inflation to come for us. The producer price index goes up by 5%, we're going to see 5% increase in prices in the future, okay? And then finally, the broadest measurement of inflation, the GDP deflator, attempts to capture the changes in prices of all goods throughout the entire economy, all finished goods. Remember, we don't include intermediate goods, goods that are going to be further processed, used to produce something else, okay? So the GDP deflator, in fact, does become our index. On our Keynesian and classical models, quantity is now real GDP, and price is now the price level. Okay? It's an index. It is the GDP deflator, the broadest measurement of inflation throughout the entire economy. Okay? Unanticipated versus anticipated inflation. Okay? Remember when you go to borrow money from the bank, if the bank thinks inflation is going to be 10% between now and when you pay them back, if they're not going to lose, they've got to charge you 10%. So the interest rate that you pay, the nominal interest rate, first and foremost, is a measurement of inflation. That just breaks them even. If it's going to cost $1 this year and it's going to cost $1.10 next year, if I'm going to break even, still be able to buy that candy bar, I've got to charge you 10%. Okay? But banks aren't in the business to break even. They're in business to stick it to us. Okay. I hate the banks. You know what they did to me? I had a credit card with an interest rate of 1%. Okay? Yeah. I was actually, now think about this. I'm paying 1% on my loan. That's my nominal interest rate. Okay? What do you think the rate of inflation was? We'll just say 3%. Okay? Now remember, banks want to break even, and then they're going to add their profit, the real rate of interest, over and above the rate of inflation. Okay? So what was the real rate of interest that I was paying on this loan? Minus 2%. Do you think the bank liked that? Hell no. So you know what they did? They failed to send me my bill. I know they did this so that I would miss my payment. And I called them up. And they said, sorry. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's not our fault that you didn't know. Okay? They're like, you know, we'll refund your late payment fee. We'll take that off. And I said, what about my 1% rate? Nah, that program's closed. Can't give that to you anymore. Okay? You're going to be paying 12% now. All right, I know. What do you think I did? I paid that off immediately. But it really made me mad because they did it on purpose. I am sure of it. Okay, I'm sure of it. So that they could get me out of that loan, right? Well, you know what they do to you, by the way? Let's say you have a credit card that's 8%. Should you be so lucky? That's not unlikely. Well, let's say you have a 9% rate, okay? If you miss a payment or if you are late, okay, you know what they do to you? Yeah, it's now 23%. Okay? That happened to me. Right? I was like, hey, I don't know what happened to the bill, but I haven't been late on any payments. There's another card. And they're like, sorry, you're stuck with the 23%. And I was like, you idiots. How long do you think I'm going to pay 23% interest on this loan? I said, you may get 1 month's interest on me, but that'll be the very end of it. You're never getting another penny out of me. And that's what I did. I called my brother up and I borrowed some money from him. And I paid off that credit card immediately. It's like, you jerks, you were at least making some money off of me, and now you decided to screw me because you think I couldn't do anything about it. Well, guess what? I did something about it, and now you get nothing. Nothing. I hate the banks. Even my own credit union I don't like anymore.
I heard that banks call people who don't pay interest deadbeats.
Interest what?
People who don't pay any interest, they call deadbeats.
Deadbeats. Yeah, that's right. They want you to pay interest. Yeah, if you're not paying interest, they'll cancel your card on you. All right? What was I going to say? I'm mad at my bank, too. Oh, yeah. Do you know what bank does to you, by the way? Okay. Let's say you write 3 checks. Okay? One for $50, one for 10, and one for 30. Okay? And let's say that you have $50 in your account. All right? And all 3 of these come in at the same time. What's the bank going to do? They're going to do that one, and this one you're going to be over, and this one you're going to be over, and they're going to charge you $35 for each. Instead of doing these 2 first, and then charging you for one overage, they do these 2 first. I mean, they do that one first, so that they can maximize the number of times they can charge you. This is true. Okay? This is what they do. To screw you. Huh? They love customers. Absolutely, they love customers. Yes, indeed. Okay? Yeah, the bank is not your friend. All right, let's see. I know, this is funny. I mean, up until this summer, or last fall, actually, I taught a course called Money and Banking at the college, right? And all I did was badmouth the banks. Oh, well, they're run by evil people. Let's see. Okay, we were talking about this. Anticipated versus unanticipated. The interest rate you pay, the nominal interest rate, is a function of what the bank expects inflation to be, and then they add their profit margin onto it. So if you pay 12% on a loan, the bank thinks inflation is going to be 8%. then the real rate of interest over and above the rate of inflation is going to be 4%. If the bank makes a mistake and inflation is higher than expected, it turns out to be 9%, you win. The real rate of interest that you are paying is now 3%. If they make an even bigger mistake and it turns out to be 12%, the money you're paying them back isn't worth any more than the money they lent you. The real rate of interest now drops to 0. You win. So when inflation is higher than anticipated, creditors, banks lose, and debtors, people who have borrowed money, win. They pay less real interest. Okay? How are we doing? We're doing all right. Is that it? Anything else? Yeah, I don't care about that. You need to know depression and recession, but that's it. Okay. Let's see. We had some homework. Suppose that you're given the following information. Okay, the labor force is 206.2 million. Adults in the military, 1.5 million. Are they included in the labor force? No, they are not. Non-adult population, are they included in the labor force? No, they are not. Employed adults? Yes. If there are 196.2 million employed adults and the whole labor force is 206.2, how many people are unemployed? 10 million. Okay. So 10 million so the unemployment rate is 10 divided by 206.2, or what is it, 5 point something percent? 4.8%. Okay.
Total population,
What's the total population? 300, huh? How do you get that?
labor force,
206.
adults,
Add the military, add the non-adults, and add the institutionals, right?
adults not in the labor force,
And the non-military, non-institutionalized that are not in the labor force. Okay? And that comes out to 300 million, right?
you don't take the employed adults because it's part of the labor force, right?
Yes. To get the 300, you have the 206.2 in the labor force, okay? And then you have adults in the military, they're not in the labor force. And then you have the non-adult population, they're not in the labor force. And then you have institutionalized, people in prison, okay? And then the non-military, non-institutionalized, people that are adults that are not in the labor force, which is 40.8, and that turns out to be 715, 10, 20, 300, right? Okay.
How about the labor force?
The labor force participation rate, well, what's the total labor force? 206.2. Now, what population would we include as people?
Total population,
Well, we would have the 206.2 that are in the labor force. We can't include people in the military. They can't take jobs. We can't include people who are institutionalized. They can't take jobs. We can't include teenagers. They can't take jobs. So it would be 206.2 plus 40.8. Okay?
how about unemployment?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, plus the unemployed. No. No, that doesn't matter. Okay?
You don't need unemployment.
No, because those unemployed people are included in the labor force itself. Okay? So we have the total labor force itself divided by who could work but is either working but does or isn't working but could be working. So the only people we would add in would be we've already captured the employed adults. They're part of the labor force. So we don't just add the non-military, non-institutional adults not in the labor force, people who are rich, retired, or not retired, right? Stay-at-home mothers and the like. Okay, so 247, 206 divided by 247, so it's about what, 80%? You think you should add the adults in the military? Why?
Well, I went online and it says total population
Uh-huh.
minus military, adults in military
and minus non-military
Institutionalized
institutional minus
children.
institutionalized.
Yeah, so that would be right. These people are in the military, and these people are institutionalized, and these people aren't adults, so they can't be included, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
Then you're missing.
Who-
10 units
Who am I missing?
unemployment.
No, the whole labor force, this 206.2, that's the employed plus the unemployed. Okay, 206.2. Otherwise, it would be 196 plus 10, remember? Okay? All right, Julio? Okay. La próxima pregunta. 712 next? Oh no, 7-8, right? The cost of a market basket of goods was $2,000 to $212. It went up to, say Mars, what? Oh, 2,100. Huh? 7-2C? What's the, what did it turn out to be? 82 point something percent? 83? Okay. So it's 206.2 divided by 247. Okay, whatever that is. Okay, 2012, the cost of the mask was 2,000. In 2014, it went up to 2,100. Using the price index formula to calculate the price index for 2014, if 2012 is the base year. That's pretty easy, right? That's price of the basket of goods today divided by the price in the earlier, or the base period. So 2014, 2,100 divided by 2,000. And what would that be, 1.105? Is that right, 105? Okay. Everybody all right with that one?
Yes.
Just a number. Remember, it would be, Israel, it would be percent, meaning that 2014 prices are 105% of 2000, but to make the index, we just drop off the percentage sign. Okay? Next one's easy. The real interest rate is 4% and the nominal interest rate is 6%. So the nominal rate that you pay is equal to the rate of inflation plus the real interest rate. So what's the anticipated rate of inflation? 2%. 2%. Okay. Everybody correcting your homework? All right, at present, the nominal interest rate is 7% and the expected rate of inflation is 5%. The current year is the base year for the price index used to calculate inflation. What is the real interest rate? 2%. Okay? Yeah, if the nominal is 7, and what does it say? And inflation is 5, then the real rate is 2. Okay? What's the price index going to be for the base year? 100. What's the price index going to be for the next year? 105. That's right. It's just 100 plus we're going to get 5% inflation, 105. Okay? So the index for the second year will be 105. Okay? Is that it for that chapter? It is. All right. Now we have our simple circular flow. Okay. Intermediate goods, goods that are going, yes.
We have 7,
Oh, is there another one? Did I miss one?
7-4.
7.4?
I think that was just for other people.
Did I give you 7.4? What does 7.4 say? How does it start? Oh, it's that same one. Employers have chosen not to hire 20 of these people in the face of government. No? Is that what it says?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We all have 7.4, but okay. Employers have chosen not to hire 20 of these people in the face of government regulations, making it too costly to employ them. Hence, they remain unemployed throughout the year. At the same time, every month during the year, 30 different people become unemployed and 30 other people find jobs. There is no seasonal. So what's the frictional unemployment rate? 3%, 30 out of 1,000. If we assume they are frictionally unemployed, right?
Yes.
So it would be 30 out of 1,000 would be the frictional unemployment rate, wouldn't it be?
Be 5%.
That's a good question. What is the unemployment rate? Yeah, 5%. It's 30 plus the 20. Okay. Each month, 30 people, not including the 20, continue to become unemployed. But each month, a new group of unemployed now takes 2 months to find. I don't care about that. The frictional rate would go up, but I don't care. What is the unemployment rate? I don't care about that either. Just the first two. All right. Let's skip those. Any others?
What's the answer for the third one?
I don't know.
Is that 6%?
I don't know. I'd have to figure it out, but I can't do it in my brain right now.
60 people.
30 people. Oh, I'd have to think about that. That's too much for me. I don't want to. I'll figure it out and let you know next time. All right, plus we're running out of time here. Okay, let's move on to Chapter 8, intermediate goods, goods that are going to be further processed. For that reason, they're not included in GDP. We didn't talk about durable and non-durable consumer goods. Just arbitrarily, it's considered a durable good if it lasts more than 3 years. If it's a pizza, is that a durable good?
No.
It depends.
Oh, yeah.
No, it's non-durable. A stereo system?
Yes.
Yeah, if you stick it in the freezer, put it under your couch. Yeah, 3 years, nah, it's still no good. Net domestic product, personal income. Let's go through this simple circular flow and then we'll get to that stuff, okay? Put up another one of these. Okay, in our simple circular flow, we have two entities. We have households, individuals and families on one side, business firms on the other. All resources are owned by individuals, either by themselves or with others. We supply the factors of production to business, and in turn, they pay us. Okay? In our simple circular flow, business sells everything that they produce to us, okay? And the money we earn from working, we use to pay for them, okay? Now remember that in every economic exchange, what the seller earns has to be exactly equal to what the buyer spends. If I buy $1,000 worth of goods from you, you earn $1,000, I spend $1,000. It has to be exactly the same. Can't be more, can't be less. And if there are many of us buying from many others, it's still the same. Our total spending has got to be equal to our total income. If 50 of us spend $100,000 on goods and services that 40 of you made, you all made $100,000. We all spent $100,000, okay? So total income and total expense have to be the same. What is income to one person is expense to the other in equal amounts, okay? So that our total spending has to be equal to our total income. In our simple circular flow, whatever comes into the business goes out again, gets paid to somebody, okay? So total income becomes for the business total expense, all right? Who do they have to pay? They have to pay workers their wages. They have to pay the bank their interest, okay? Keep it simple. And if they don't own the building or the machines, they've got to pay rent, okay? After all expenses have been paid, whatever's left over is profit. Profit gets paid to the owner, okay? If there's no profit, there's no business. Just like wages to workers and interest and rent, profit is a business expense. Just like these people have to be paid, the owner has to be paid, okay? So profit is an expense of doing business. Owner, the entrepreneur, has to get their payment also. In addition, the business takes in tax money and turns that over to the government. Sales taxes are not a tax on us. They are a tax on us. They're not a tax on the business, so that's the reason they're called indirect business taxes. Business just collects it from us and then passes it on to the government. It doesn't get paid to the owner or to the workers or to the bank or the owner of a capital. So we have to account for indirect business taxes, taxes collected by the business and paid to the government. In addition, we're going to add one more, depreciation. Okay? Depreciation. The definition of depreciation is the loss in value of an asset through use, through wear and tear. In this case, we're going to consider depreciation. There's a reason why we're separating it out, not including it in any of these other categories. Okay? Somebody has to be paid to repair the machine. We're going to think of it like that initially. Okay? That depreciation, somebody has to be paid to keep these machines in perfect condition. All right? There's another reason why we left it out. If this is GDP, right? GDP by the income approach. Okay? The sum of all of these. Now, if this is equal to GDP, the total value of what we produced that year, if we want to find out what did we actually have this year that we didn't have last year, then we have to deduct the value of depreciation. You can think of this in two ways. Okay? I bought that machine last year for $10,000. At the end of this year, it needed $1,000 worth of repairs. If that's the only thing that happened in my economy, do I have anything more this year than I did last year? No, all I did was bring last year's GDP back up to its original value by repairing that machine. I don't have any more machine this year than when I started, okay? So if we want to find out what did we actually add to the economy over and above what we had last year, we have to subtract depreciation, the value of repair work, okay? You can also think of it this way. In order to produce this year's GDP, we had to use up some equipment. We had to use up some machinery. We had a loss. So we produced $50,000 worth of goods and services, but we used up $5,000 worth of machine. So what's the net addition to the economy? It's $45,000, okay? So if we want to find out what did we actually add to the economy, what is net domestic product? Then, we take gross domestic product and subtract from it the value of depreciation, okay? So net domestic product plus depreciation is equal to GDP. Okay so far? Okay. Over on this side, remember, all of the money that comes in gets spent again, okay? Gets paid out to somebody with that money that should be HH, we buy goods and services, okay? Total spending has to be equal to total income. On the spending side, the expenditure approach, GDP by the expenditure approach, consists of consumer spending. Okay? 2/3 of all dollars in the economy are spent by consumers, people like us trying to satisfy some of our unlimited wants. In addition, government buys goods and services in the economy. Okay? And business. We're going to call business I, which stands for gross, private, domestic investment. Okay? And it has three pieces. Fixed capital, machines and buildings to produce goods and services. Okay? And housing. Houses can be used to generate income. And changes, this is doing it again, in inventory. Okay? We take ending inventory and subtract beginning inventory to get the change. All right? We have to account for goods that are produced within the year but not sold to somebody. So we want to capture the value of those goods by what did we produce and put on the shelf ready for sale next year. But we don't want to include what we started the year with. So what did we end up with and what did we start with? It's like I leave work with $50 in my pocket. I come to work, I sell some books for $100, and then I go home, and my wife says, how much did you make today? Do I say 150? No. I say, I started with 50, I ended up with 150, I made 100. Honey, how much do you want? Actually, she makes way more money than I do. Yeah, she works her butt off. She's a cardiac sonographer, echocardiography, ultrasound of the heart. She just does hearts with ultrasound. You know, you're going to have a baby. They do an ultrasound to see what it looks like. She does that for hearts, just hearts, that's all. Adults and children. She used to have 3 jobs. She's down to 2 now. One of us has got to work. Okay. What's the difference between gross private domestic investment and net private domestic investment? Depreciation, okay? To get from gross to net investment, we subtract repair work, or we subtract the loss in value of assets, okay? By the way, you're probably going to get a question, maybe, I can't remember, that will have like some of these components and all of these. Okay, the last one being net exports, okay, which we'll talk about in a second. So in other words, I may ask you to figure out GDP, but I'll only give you profits and wages and indirect business taxes and depreciation. But I'll give you consumption, government spending, net exports, and gross private investment. But it'll all be mixed up, okay? In fact, we'll get the 2 pieces of net exports, right? We want to capture everything that we produced here but weren't bought by people here, were bought by people outside of the country. So we add in exports, right? So that's plus exports. But a lot of our spending is on imported goods, right? So we subtract imports to get net exports, okay? And for the United States, that's a large negative number, okay? It's a subtraction. And if we import more goods, GDP goes down, because imports are a subtraction from our calculation of GDP by the expenditure approach. Okay with that? Everybody good with this? Now, remember we said there were 2 problems. One we just dealt with, the fact that all goods that are produced that year don't necessarily get sold that year. So we capture the change in inventory. And the other problem with the circular flow was that we don't spend all of the money we earned, right? We spend more than that. This is true for this country. It used to be. We spent, on average, every single year, more than we earned. Okay? That's why we ended up in debt. Okay? Did I tell you how much credit card debt I paid off last year? $100,000. Yeah, imagine that. I was over $100,000 in debt for credit cards. Okay? But I paid it off.
Is that average?
Huh?
Is that average for Americans?
Is that average? Oh no, that's way out of control. No, that's so far beyond average. It's ridiculous. Oh God almighty, I must have 12 Visa, and I could literally take my credit cards and go buy a house. I've got several credit cards with $30,000 credit limits on them. Okay? Yeah. Yeah, hell yeah. That's why I had to pay off $100,000. I told you what happened, right? Yeah, I had to use my cards because I couldn't pay for my kids' educations mainly. I got accustomed to a certain lifestyle. But that's what I did with my retirement money. I don't have any retirement money anymore. The present is wonderful. The future is bleak. But I'm counting on my kids, right? Yeah, I got out of control. It's easy to do. Easy to do. Okay, you guys? So we have 2 approaches. The income approach, well, I'll put up a new one. Okay? The income approach, wages plus interests plus rents plus profits plus indirect business taxes plus depreciation. Total of our income has to be equal to consumption spending plus gross private domestic investment plus government spending plus net exports. Okay? These 2 have to be equal. Right? What else do we care about? Anything else? Oh, what don't we include in GDP? Okay. We don't include financial transactions. Buying and selling of stock is just change of ownership. Nothing, remember, to be included in GDP, two things have to be true. A brand new good or service has to be produced that year, and it has to be visible to the government in that somebody declares that income and pays taxes on it. Okay? So secondhand goods, used goods that are resold, not included. We capture their value in the year that they're produced. Okay? Intermediate goods, further processed. Financial goods, not included. Okay? Transfer payments, not included. What else? Am I missing something? Secondhand goods. Yeah, let me take a look. Financial. Yes, intermediate goods, not included. Right? That's what it was. Thank you. Underground activity, because it's not visible to the government. They cannot capture its value. So both legal and illegal. You work for a family member and they pay you cash. It's not illegal to work. You're supposed to pay taxes. That's the illegal part. Or you're a prostitute, a drug dealer, a murderer for contract hire. Okay? Those are underground activities and not included. Okay? Household production, that's another thing. Household production, right? I take my wife out for a nice meal, included. I cook it because somebody pays for it, right? Somebody declares income. I make a better meal at home, right? I do 100% of the cooking, right? My wife does nothing. As a matter of fact, she's gotten so far from knowing how to cook, she asked me how to use the microwave yesterday. I was like, man. All right. But I make her a great meal, not included in GDP, right? Nobody gets paid. Okay? Well, not entirely true. I get paid. She's got to pay me. She does the dishes. What else do we not include? Anything else? No. Okay. That's pretty much it. All right. Anything else in here? Or are we done? Yes, thank you. One other thing. Oh, there's a couple more things. All right. Okay. Other components, I care about personal income, as you should. Personal income, your gross pay, right? Personal income is the income that we earn as citizens, I guess. Okay. We include unearned income also, okay? It's all the income that households receive. So it can be transfer welfare payments or something like that, all right? But we don't include things like indirect business taxes. That's not income to us, okay? So our personal income, and then we have to pay income taxes out of it, right? So personal income minus personal income taxes, that leaves us with the money we can spend, our disposable income, okay? So the difference between our disposable income and our personal income is personal income taxes. Personal disposable income, okay? That's all I care about as far as that. Here's a complicated part, distinguishing between nominal and real values, right? Remember that if I produce $10 worth of goods and services this year, and next year I produce the same amount, same goods and services in the same amount, but I charge $15 for them, then my nominal face value GDP has gone up. But in a real sense, I didn't produce any more this year than that year, okay? When I'm talking about one or two things, it's easy to figure that out. But if I'm talking about hundreds of thousands of different things, I can't go out and count how many I produced. So I have to have a way of figuring out, does this $15 trillion represent a 50% increase in output? Or is some of that increase just charging more money for the same stuff? What portion of that increase means more output, and what portion of that difference means just higher prices? Remember, in this case, it was 100% higher prices, okay? meaning in a real sense the economy didn't grow at all. But if I didn't have any inflation at all, then 100% of this increase would be real economic growth. So I have to figure out, first off, how much did prices go up? Then I can factor that into this amount and reduce that value to be able to, in other words, if prices went up by 50%, anything that used to be $1 is now $1.50. If I divide this by that $1.50, I can figure out how much, in a real sense, I produced in constant base year dollars, right? If I make every $1.50 here equal to $1, okay, make base year price. What am I trying to say here? At any rate, what we want to do is factor out inflation to get real GDP. Okay? Nominal GDP reduced by inflation, by dividing it by our measurement of inflation, will give us real GDP. Okay? So if inflation was 50%, okay, we would be able to figure out that this $15 trillion versus $10 trillion, okay, that all of this increase in nominal face value is just due to higher prices. How do we do that? We take nominal GDP and divide it by the index. So nominal GDP, 15, will make it 1,500,000,000,000. And what would be the index for this year if we had 50% inflation? Base year index is 100. What's the index for this year? 150, right? 100 plus 50% inflation. 10, right? So in a real sense, did I do that right? Yeah. Okay? Okay? So in a real sense, GDP hasn't changed. All of that increase is due to inflation. But what if we only had a 20% increase in price? Okay? Now what would we do? We would divide this by 120. Okay? And what does that turn out to be? 1.33, something like that? 13.3? 13.3, okay? So now that I've factored out inflation, I can see that in a real sense, in constant base year dollars, the economy has grown from 10 trillion to 13.3 trillion. The other 1.7 trillion is just higher prices for the same goods, okay? All right with that? So to find out what is real GDP, take today's face value GDP and divide it by the index, the measurement of inflation, okay? So real GDP is nominal GDP that has been adjusted for changes in prices between the periods, adjusted for inflation. All right with that? And then the last thing is comparing GDP throughout the world, right? What do we care about? Our standard of living. How does it compare to others? But we can't just go in. The first thing we have to do is convert the currency of one, India, GDP 150 trillion or billion rupees, okay? How does that compare with Swiss GDP per capita? Well, I don't know. Swiss GDP is 200 Swiss francs, okay? Which one's bigger? I don't know. We got to, at current exchange rates, we have to convert one into the other. But once we do that, we find out, let's say the Swiss franc, it's equal to 180 trillion rupees, okay? That doesn't tell us anything until we divide it by the population. We want to find out not total GDP. India has a much larger GDP than Switzerland, probably. Maybe not, actually. Not sure. India has a much larger GDP than, say, Vanuatu, an island in the Pacific, okay? But that doesn't tell us anything. What we care about is GDP per person. So you have to take GDP converted, divided by the population to get GDP per capita. And that doesn't tell us much either. I was reading an international business book today that 90% of the population of India makes the equivalent of $1,500 a year. Okay? We would starve to death. That would last us a couple of weeks here. Okay? But it lasts a lot longer in India. That's the equivalent of $12,000. Okay? So we have to adjust, once we make this conversion, we have to adjust it for what it can actually buy. Okay? We have to change it for its purchasing power. Purchasing power parity is the adjustment in purchasing power that we make once we've made the exchange rate change per capita. What can that really buy? Okay? So, okay, purchasing power parity is the most accurate way to compare standards of living across borders. All right, you guys? All right, get out.